to emphasize, it will be very important that if everyone can keep themselves on a mute, because it's a little disrupting when we're trying to present and you have several voices. So far so good. So I see there are already a few questions. So we'll save them for later. And here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Give me just a second. So I'm going to turn off my camera just to improve my Wi-Fi connection. It is the beauty of working from home these days. So here we go. Okay. So if I share my screen, and you should be able to see it right now. So this is our team session. As you can see, this is a new view of the team in the part of meetings that we have right now. So I'm going to go ahead and open my lab. So this is my Teams lab. Just as an introduction to what is Teams. So Microsoft Teams came around 2 years. It was 2 years and a half, something like that. And what we wanted to create with Teams was a simplified way to centralize every application, being Office 365, and not only, but also integration with third parties in one single place. So when we say this is a teamwork space, what it means is I have Teams where I can integrate with SharePoint, OneDrive, Yammer, Stream, all the applications in one place. What it means is my Teams is going to be the front door to everything else that exists in the back. But that being said, yes, you still need to have SharePoint, you still need to have OneDrive. So you got to see Teams as the front door to everything that you own in the house. So that's the best way I like to explain it. That being said, Teams, and for some, maybe this is a new screen. For others, you already have been used it for a while. But sometimes, and I get that question a lot, is, okay, I have Teams now. What am I supposed to do with it? So Teams is divided in several icons you see on the left side. And what you see on the left side, and I know there was a previous question about this, those are apps that are pinned to your taskbar. We call the taskbar. These apps have been predefined by your administrator. What it means is, for example, if you don't see the calendar, the calendar is fully integrated with Outlook. What it means is that your administrator didn't make it available for you. And that's the reason you won't see it. So by default, these are the apps that are pinned to your taskbar when you first start using Teams. So what is important here? We have what is activities. Those are this is the feed where someone mentioned you directly, or there is a new activity in the team where you belong to. So that's the feed I use every morning to see what is new, is there any call to action directly to me. That's the activity. Then you have the chat. So the chat is basically could be one-on-one conversations, one-to-many conversations, could be conversations you have into a team like the one we're having right now, to a team meeting. And then inside the chat, you're going to have the chat, you're going to have the files, the meeting notes, if there are any, you can take notes. And there is going to be integration with the whiteboard, which is a Microsoft whiteboard. And specifically now, during COVID, this became a really essential tool. What it does, and the options is, so is everyone seeing my screen or not? I have someone saying they cannot see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Fazal, can you see? Fazal Mohammed is saying he cannot see the screen. So I just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make sure you can see it. Good. So as I was saying, a whiteboard, it became even more useful during COVID, because everything we do right now, it's remote. So what it does is that you can you can share this whiteboard with as many people. For example, during this meeting we're having right now, I could be sharing the whiteboard and everyone could be taking notes or drawing or, you know, something. And then after that, you can save the whiteboard and share it. And for example, transform the notes into text and just have a file about your meeting, for example. Then we have, and what I love about the files is at any point in time, if I want to know, for example, did I share any file with Isaiah, I can come at any time, any point in time to files, and I don't need to go think what I shared with him. So at any point in time, you can see the files that you shared with someone or with some people from the team you belong to. Teams. What is a team? A team is an Office 365 group. Nothing in that. And what it does is you can have a team that by default, every time you create a team, you're gonna have a channel. So team is the group you create for certain people, and everything you create inside is going to be called a channel. So what it does is by default, you have a general that which everyone that belongs to the retail in this scenario is going to have access to the general. And then you can see the locks here. So what we introduced a while back ago is a private chat. What it does, a private chat, I'm so sorry, a private channel. What it does is you can create a channel inside this group and just add certain people. Why is that important? So you got to see a group as a group, as a distribution group, for example. So the people who belong to this group are the only people that are going to be able to see the channels. So if you want to do what we call a granular way of assigning permissions or to define who can see that, you can create a private channel. Just keep this in mind. The only people you can add to this private channel are the people who already belong to the main team. If this person, if for example, we want to add someone named Sarah that doesn't belong to the retail, you won't be able. That's a security precaution. So you don't add people outside. Okay, so that's the reason. So then you have the calendar. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm trying to optimize our time. Where you have the calendar is fully integrated with the Outlook calendar. So what you see here is what you see on the Outlook calendar. You have a Meet Now button that you can have a meet immediately, new meeting, or you can create new live events that is for broadcasting right here. Then you have calls, very much so like everything else we had before. And then we have files. And in terms of files, what it's important to say. So, and I get that question a lot, is, okay, I got SharePoint, I got OneDrive, I don't understand what's the need and when should I use one or the other. So just to put it plain and simple, every file you have here inside the Teams, these files here, this is a retail, or if I go to sales and marketing, all the files you see here are going to be directly sitting on SharePoint. So SharePoint is going to be the essential Office 365 tool where everything is going to sit on SharePoint. So Teams is going to sit on SharePoint. All the file management is going to sit on SharePoint. As you can see here, you can have a direct connection and open files in SharePoint. I don't know why there's no file here. I'm trying to show you one where there is files so you could see it. So that's where the files go. Everything else that is personal, and when I say personal is when you go on the chat conversation, and if I'm exchanging files with Zaya, for example, so one-on-one, that's going to be OneDrive. So when I go to files here, and I'm trying to do this in a way that everyone can understand, I have the recent files. That's going to be all the files that my teams, you see, teams I belong to, or my personal files that I accessed recently. Then I have Microsoft Teams. So when the files, this is all the files I was referring to belonging to teams you belong to. See, all the files that have been shared in the Teams are going to sit under Microsoft Teams. And then there's the OneDrive. So OneDrive is going to hold all the files that are yours, okay? So all the files that are Megan, so Megan is my user in my lab, all of her files are going to be OneDrive. But also, and I don't want to confuse you, but OneDrive, it's OneDrive for Business, of course, but the OneDrive in the end sits on top of SharePoint too. But the distinction is every file that is private, just to keep it simple, 101, it's OneDrive, it's considered your property, it's personal. Every file that is shared through the Teams is going to SharePoint. So everything you see on Teams goes to SharePoint all the time. So that's the basic for Teams. Then integrate with OneNote, Shift, Planner, Stream, etc. That's the Teams. Other than that, so is there any specific question at this point for files while I'm here? I'm trying to.
It looks like, Claudia, we've had several different questions about saving files. So chat files specifically, and also shared files. So we had a question from Flora about where are chat files saved. And then we also had a question, where are shared files saved? So maybe if you want to take those.
Yeah. So that's what I just said. So the chat files here, these files you see as the ones you're sharing with someone you're talking to, those are going to sit on OneDrive. The files that, I don't know what you mean by shared files, but I believe it's the files that are inside the team that you share with the team are going to be sitting on SharePoint. So either you can manage them inside the team, or as I said, Teams is going to be the central point for management, or you can click on opening SharePoint and those files are going to be available inside SharePoint, inside the documents for that team. Remember, it goes directly to the team. And then inside the team, this is the SharePoint, right? You'll have all the documents that you are having. So this is how you can see it. So then it goes, you see, you go to the messages, everything that was exchanged. To that group, you can administer in terms of the SharePoint. So when we talk about shared files, being this Office 365, there is no save button because it's always live and everything is recorded automatically. It's so it's always going to sit live, Office 365. Also, everyone inside this group, for example, Market Project Team, can be working in the same file at the same time without any disruption to its work. So that's what it means to work live and real time with files. So that's when you say I can be here and Sarah and Ellen and everyone can be here working at the same time in the same file. What's going to happen is when I'm, for example, working on a Word file, I can see who is working on the file at that specific time. So that's how you see it. Any other questions?
So we had some questions as well about the chat discussion itself. So rather than the files shared in a chat, the actual chat discussions. There was a question about where are those chat files saved? Okay,
the chat files, they are going to go to OneDrive. If we're talking about the chat that I'm having as a private conversation, they are going to sit here, OneDrive, okay? If you're talking about a chat, for example, the one we're having right now, okay? And being that it's a conversation that only exists in the chat, those are going to be going on OneDrive. If, for example, we had a team together and we're working here, those files are going to go sit on SharePoint. Okay, so chat conversations, private conversations, all of those go OneDrive. Everything else is going to sit on SharePoint.
Great, thank you for that, Claudia. I think we also had some questions around sort of privacy. So there was a question from Anna. if a team is private, if files go to SharePoint, are they public? Are they then only accessible by team members? So maybe you could talk a bit about privacy settings.
Mm-hmm. So the reason is why we have the private is exactly that goal. So if I share a file inside, for example, see here test demo. So the people who are going to have access to it are the people that I gave permission to be members. If you, an outsider of this private group, goes inside SharePoint, you won't be able to see this group. So if you are not able to see the group, you cannot see the file. The file is never going to be made available for you, except for the people who have permission to this private group.
Great. And it does look like we still have some questions about those chats. So there's a question about where in OneDrive the chats are actually saved. Marie and Flora are both saying they were unable to see them on their OneDrive. So where on OneDrive could they find those chats?
So the chat conversations are not saved on OneDrive. We're talking about files, okay? So the chats are different things. So the chat conversation is, so the team's conversation, if we're talking about team conversation, they are stored in the Office 365 group mailbox. So when we talk about, let me go back and show it. When we talk about retail, for example, right? We're having a conversation here where I'm typing right now, right here. So what's going to happen, this is associated with a group mailbox in Office 365. So every retail, sales and marketing, they all have an associated group mailbox. This is a hidden folder that is going to be inside that group called conversation history / team chat. So it's a private, so that's for the team. The private chats, the ones you see here, they are going to be stored in the user mailbox in a hidden folder called the same name, conversation history team chat. You as a user, you don't have access to the team chat, okay? So this is controlled by the administrator. So the way, for example, I don't know if anyone is asking me, but if you want to have access to the team chat, one thing, team chat or private chats are considered persistent. What it means is, remember if you used Skype before, the Skype had a conversation folder in Outlook and you could go back in. In Teams, we have a persistent. What it means is this, what you see right here in the screen is never going to go away. Okay, so the chats are persistent. And that conversation history, it's always made available for you here. So anytime, at any point in time, you just come here and you can see all the conversations you had with specific people or specific group, team that you belong to. So if there, I don't know if anyone asked, but the team chat is not available for you. It is available for you inside the chat. It's not available in terms of history to go directly to that metadata. It's only available for administrator inside the user mailbox. So unless you are an administrator and you have access to the mailboxes, you do not see it, but you see it inside Teams because it's persistent and is not deleted. Just keep in mind, this is totally configurable by your administrator. So if your I have customers at Microsoft, our chats do not disappear. They are persistent at all times, but I have customers who configure this to be, for example, made available only one day, only a week. So it totally depends on the configuration. By default, they do not go away. They stay here at all times. So if you want to see your conversations with the groups or private, they are all the time, they are sitting on your team. So that's how you see it.
Great. Thank you for that really thorough answer, Claudia. That was really helpful. I think we might want to move on past chat for now. We can come back to questions later. I just want to make sure you've got time to get through everything.
Yeah,
we're taking note of these questions, so do keep them coming in the chat, and we'll try to get to them at the end.
Great. I just want to make sure we address all the questions. So if I move on, in terms of recording, we are having a recording right now with you. So what's going to happen is, and can someone unmute themselves? Okay, thank you for that. We are recording this call, as you can see here, and this call is being recorded inside, as you can see here. I can stop recording and the transcript. You won't be able to see the transcript because this is, if you notice here, I'm using a preview version. And this version is not made available. There are certain things you see on my screen that are not yet available for public, okay? So what you can do in terms of meeting, I can have right now, since last month, I can have the number of participants here. And if anyone wants to enable the camera, we can see everyone. You would be able to see 9 people in the main screen, okay? That's the new view. We had the 4, now we have 9 people. What's coming during this next quarter is 49 people in the same screen, or what we call 7+7. So that's going to be a new feature that is coming. Another thing you see is the raise hand that is now, for example, during this meeting, when everybody is made, it's on mute, you can just raise your hand and ask your question. The chat conversation is pretty much the same. And I know someone is asking me this. So as you can see here, you can manage permissions for this meeting in terms of the participants. And you can also download the file. So the download file, it's a file where you can download the attendance for the meeting. The attendance for the meeting is going to give you who attended the meeting, what time did they join, and which device was used to join this meeting. Other than that, so that file is going to be saved inside. Sorry, when you click download, and my download is not yet working because I'm still on a preview, so we don't have the final version. It's gonna be downloaded. So you define the location for the CSV file where you want to save it. Other than that, these are the options for the meeting. Other than that, so when I finish my recording, what's gonna happen is, and this is I want to show you. So when I'm finished this meeting and I come here, let me see if I can show you here. Sorry, I don't like to show mine, but so here, as you can see, this is a recording that I started. This is the chat conversation. So as soon as we finish this meeting, that the chat is going to tell you a recording is available. So the recording is going to be made available here in the chat conversation. What it's to know. So the recordings are directly saved on stream. So when you go on Teams and see this stream, that's 2 options. You can see the stream inside Teams. Remember, anything is possible to see here. Or you can go open Microsoft Stream. When you open Microsoft Stream, you're going to have a few options. So as you can see, mine is not working right now. Of course, it's not, because when I'm presenting, it decides to fail. So let me see here. So these are my videos, for example. One thing you have to keep in mind is Microsoft Stream is where all of the content you save, everything, like all the meetings are recorded, are here. And I have full permissions to this video. I can share, I can download the video, and you can share this video on any platform. The only thing is, all the stream content is not made available for external participants. So right now I'm recording this video, but since you were external to Microsoft, you won't be able to see it unless if I share it, okay? So that's the only thing. But since I am the owner of the video, because you can see here, for example, here I don't have permissions because I didn't record this video. So you see the yellow sign? So this is private or public. You can make them private or public. So when I have the option download, it means I was the creator of the video. So I can see the video and I can share that video. So this is stream. What can I do here? I can go, for example, here, I hope everyone can see my screen. And I can use a transcript. So remember, a transcript is, I have Microsoft Teams is sitting on top of artificial intelligence with cognitive services. That's going to give you options that are totally built on Azure Media Services. So what's going to happen, for example, if I want to search the specific keywords, I can type Microsoft, for example, it doesn't have, but I can type security. And the video, I know it exists. I'm having a fail here. Okay. I'm clearly having a problem on my network right now. I'm sorry about that. But I can just put any word that I want, and it's going to give me those keywords because it's going to search the transcript. And for example, what I do a lot is if I miss a meeting, I can just come here and I type my name and I can just see if anyone mentioned my name. That's one example. So that's the transcript with closed captions on and off. If I go back here, I have now the option just available to the US. So for people who are not in the US, this won't be available right now. It's going to be soon, not yet. I can turn on live captions. So as you can see, at this point in time, you can see that I am talking. It's going to give you the heads up, and it's going to transcribe all the text I'm saying. So if I was doing a PowerPoint presentation, I can do it in English, and I can translate it immediately to French or any other language. Right now, closed caption is only available in English. So when I click here, you can see live captions are only in English. And before we go, it's important also to show you. So I have a lot of customers that work with external people that are outside. For example, we use this example, people are outside of Microsoft. So we introduced with Teams what we call guests. So two things. You can only add guests to a team if your administrator has enabled it. So the guest access is not enabled by default. How do you know? When you go here and have a member, and if I want to add someone that is external, let me type something else. For example, if I type this, all you need to add someone is their email address. So the only way to know if it's enabled for you right now is when you type an email address and you have this add Claudia as a guest, and the add button is enabled, it means your administrator has enabled the guest access. If it doesn't show up like this, it's because it's not enabled. So if I add this person, I'm going to get an email on my Gmail account saying that I was invited for a team. And when I click, it's going to bring me directly to this team and only this team. So what to capture here? So it's going to tell immediately this team as guests. So you keep it, at all times, privacy is a concern you should keep on top of your mind. You get the channel settings, and you can also manage the guest permissions here. You can, for example, allow them to create and update channels and delete channels. By default, options are disabled because we want them to have restricted permissions. Guests do not have access to calendar and any other item. They solely have access to this team. If you want to go use calendar, for example, sharing calendars between organizations, different organizations than yours, then it's what's called external access, and that needs to be configured to your administrator in an organization level. So guest access, you can add volunteers, but anyone you want, just using their email address. You only need their email address. Ellen, I don't know how much time I have, so.
Yeah, we've got a couple questions. We can maybe pause here, and then I think if you've got some points to finish up with, we can do another 5 or 10 minutes and finish with more questions there.
That's great.
Okay, perfect. So we had a question from Marco who asked, can you add a new member to your team as a guest, but limit this person's access to only specific channels?
So when you add a person as a guest, you will have access to all the channels that are inside that team. The way to avoid that he has no access to those channels is to create private channels and not add this person.
Great, thank you. And then we have another question from Asana. How can we share a file within a chat with an external person?
So that person needs to be invited to the chat as a guest to the team. So if you want to share a file in a retail with someone that is external to my team, these files here, you need to invite that person to be a guest inside the team here. You have to add that person as a member here. So that's the way to do it. You cannot send it to external people because this is a security measure to avoid that people share files they shouldn't be sharing.
Great, thank you, Claudia. Would you like to go ahead and finish up with your next points, and we'll just keep doing this and maybe pause for questions every so often?
Yeah, of course. So remind me again, I'm just trying to check if I covered everything. I know we had a list. Let me see. So yeah, sharing files, pinning contact. Okay, another thing that is important to say, all the conference calls. So just to finish my presentation in that sense. So in terms of conferencing calls, in terms of team meetings, in terms of live events, they are all going to sit on the same platform, which is Stream. Okay, I don't know why my Stream is failing today, but it shouldn't. So everything that you use here in terms of calls and any team meeting you're having is going to be sitting here. That's how it works. What is it? Then I don't know if there's a question about it, but the difference between a team meeting and a live event. So a team meeting is what we're doing right now. Okay. So a team meeting is the number of participants you can have on a team meeting was increased last week to 300 participants. And if you want to go over that number, you should use Teams Live Events. So Teams Live Events was developed to broadcast at a large scale, and the capacity, if you use Teams, it's 10,000 people. If you create that live event using Stream, it's going to be available to 100,000. The difference is when you use Stream, it's only made available for internal people that belong to your organization. Microsoft Teams enables you to create events for anyone inside or outside your organization. So those were the topics that I had. So, oh, sorry about that. It's like a lot of noise. That's a team. So the teams you're seeing right now on your screen, and once again, I think someone was asking, and sometimes I see questions coming on the chat. This is a preview version, is a new view that you're gonna have available this quarter of the year, okay? So what we're gonna do is, you're gonna have the normal chat. You're gonna have this option to have a chat conversation that is private. For example, I can do this, and I have a private chat conversation, okay? And then you have the chat, the Teams, sorry, the Teams window, and then you have the meeting per se. So I can have different windows, one for my meeting, one from my Teams, and other for my private conversations if I want to have private windows. So that's the new view. For someone who was asking me, how can you pin this bar up here? So this is by default when you have the new Teams version, okay? So the controls are gonna come up here instead of being at the bottom like before. I personally don't like them, didn't like them before because I kept clicking on the request control because it's so close to the other controls that it was a little bit annoying. So we collect feedback from our customers, and that's how we change things. As you can see here, I have a C under my name. It's because I am a champion for Teams. So what it means is I participate in these sessions where I discuss any feedback that I get from my customers. For example, I want to see a feature that is not available, and that's how we collect feedback, and that's why I test different versions before they came available to public. Yeah, so that's a little bit just you know, touching on Teams in a very high level, but of course Teams has so many other capabilities. We now integrate with Power Apps, we develop apps, we have Power BI integration, analytics, so everything else is going to be integrated with Teams, and that is going to be the future of our company. Yammer, huge investment, is also going to be part of Teams, and it's already built in inside Teams for public. So you can have an app. So when you come here on the apps on Microsoft Teams, you're also going to have one that is called Yammer. So that's also available. So if I go here, I can show you. I had mine installed. I uninstalled yesterday. So you can have, as you can see, mine is still dog food, but I can have the Yammer tool integrated, and then I receive notifications just like I receive now, but for Yammer. Okay, I would like to take some time to answer all the questions. So Ellen, I'm gonna request you to be my moderator and help me.
Great, no problem. So we had a question from Valeria that I think would be a great one to kick off with, asking what is the most appropriate tool for co-working on the same document, Team or SharePoint? And I wonder if you might speak a little bit more generally about which apps you should use and when.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, absolutely. The tool I use every day for me is going to be Teams. So because the goal is that you centralize everything in one single place, so you don't going to have to go back and forth, you know, oh, now I'm going to go on SharePoint, now I'm going on Teams. So everything you can do in terms of files here, and if I go to my files, all the files here, not this one, I'm sorry about that. All these files, as you can see, are going to sit on SharePoint, but you can just click here and you can work on that file inside Teams with anyone else working in the same file at the same time. And as you can see, you see my face up here, Megan. If I had other people, you see everyone else that is working that same file at the same time as you, and in which field they are editing. If you don't like to work inside Teams and you prefer to work outside, you just click up here, the ellipsis, and you can open in browser, or if you had the option, because I don't have the option here being this web version, when you're on the desktop, it asks you if you want to open in the browser or if you want to open inside Excel. So it's going to be a personal you know, decision, but the goal and what I would say is try to use Teams as much as possible. So as you can see, open desktop app, or you can just open in the browser so you can have a different window. If you don't like to work inside Teams because you want to do other things, just open in a different window. But it's always going to be live, and it's always going to be everyone work at the same file at the same time. It doesn't matter where. If it's a desktop, if it's inside Teams, it doesn't change anything.
So one question on using those apps. So Emma Louise has asked, if we invite external partners to a team, do they have to have a Microsoft Office subscription to participate?
No. So when you join a team meeting like the one we're having today, the person, even if it's an external, is going to use the link to connect to the meeting. By default, when you connect to a meeting, it's going to have you the web version. It's going to ask you, you're going to switch to the desktop version. Same thing with the files. So if you are external and you are in a team that has a certain Excel file, it's going to have to open Excel online for you, because it's Office 365. You don't need to have Excel installed in your desktop to be able to see or to view that file.
Right. And Sharon asks, one of the challenges I have experienced with Teams Online document edit is the lagging and freezing. Mm-hmm. Yes, sorry, can you hear me? Okay.
I couldn't, no, I can't. There wasn't some noise and I couldn't hear you at all. Do you mind repeating?
No problem. So we just had a question from Sharon, and she asks, one of the challenges I've experienced with Teams Online document edit is the lagging and freezing. Is there a way to avoid that?
Well, that is sort of going to depend on the connectivity you have at your end. So that's not that's not related to Teams or to the online, but I'm guessing it's the connection you're using at your end that's going to create the speed or not.
Great. And we've had another question from Adriana. I think you did touch on this earlier, but maybe if you just want to reiterate, how do you control what files in a Teams group are open and available to external colleagues if we invite them to join one conversation and edit one document, for example?
Okay, that is actually a good question. So there are two options. Either you create a private chat, like a private, sorry, it's like a lot of noise. I'm gonna go ahead and mute everyone. Okay.
I was saying the same thing.
Can you hear me? So as I was saying, there are two options. Either you can just create a private group here, a private channel, or if you understand SharePoint, you can come on the documents and just work on these permissions inside the document inside SharePoint. Okay, so you can manage access inside SharePoint, or that is, for example, if you have one specific document that you don't want one specific person to be able to access. But going back to my point that I was trying to make before, try to use Teams as much as possible. And if this is one time you want to do it, it's punctual situation where we just want to do this file at this one time, just maybe edit that file using SharePoint and manage the permissions. If it's something you want to do at a recurrent basis, just create a private channel and don't add that person to the group.
Great, thank you. And now we've got a question from Carmen saying, how do breakout rooms work?
So breakout rooms are not yet available, okay? Breakout rooms are coming, and let me just show you. I think I had it here. So this is what's coming for Microsoft Teams. And the virtual breakout rooms, as you can see here, so you're gonna have an option where you can have the meeting organizers to split their Teams meeting to participants into small groups. And that's how you can just then define the discussions between the groups, is like facilitating the way of the number of people we have and inside the channels, and just distribute those breakout rooms for those specific channels. They are coming later this calendar year. We estimate to be Q3. So it is going to be till the end of September. It's going to be made available.
Great. Sounds like that will be a really useful feature once it's released. I'd like to maybe return to some of the earlier questions. I know we're in our last 10 minutes, so if you have any burning questions, please do make sure you put those in the chat and we'll get through as many as we can. But I'll just briefly go through some of these questions we had a little while ago.
Ellen, just really fast, I see Carmen Gammon is asking, could you use channel like breakout rooms? Yes, that's the workaround we have right now before we release the breakout rooms, Carmen. Thank you for your question.
Great, that's really helpful to know you can use that in the meantime. So we had a question towards the beginning from Flora about how can you clear or erase a private chat?
So when you have a private chat, you can go, it's not possible to erase. The only thing you can do, for example, if I click here, I can click on the message and I can delete this message. So I can delete message by message. To delete the chat conversation is not possible because this is administered at a higher level by the administrator to the persistent chat conversations. So you cannot delete it yourself. You can just delete messages, not the entire conversation, because they are persistent. It's built in by design and controlled by the administrator.
Great, and just a couple other questions on deleting. So we had a question about how do you delete shared files, and is there a way to permanently delete a private channel and a related SharePoint site? So maybe you could take those all in one.
Mm-hmm. So if you want to delete a file, so you come to the files, Let me see if there's any file here that I could show you. Should be no files. So you can come to the file, and remember, to be able to delete that file, you gotta be the creator or have full permission to delete the file. Okay, so it's just to avoid that anyone can come here and just delete a file. So you click. Let me see if I can show. I wish I could show you. Where do I have files here really quickly? For example, if I go here, you see I click on the file right there. If I go to editing teams, so this is, oh my gosh, sorry, I cannot show you this. So you go to SharePoint and you could totally administer that file and just decide what to do with that file. You can just click, open, download, delete. So you can just administer that way. So you click on the file, delete here. Remember, if I don't have permissions, I won't be able to delete. But if I click delete, I shouldn't want it to recycle bin. So it's going to be staying in recycle bin. I think it's for 30 days. It stays there, and after that period, it's going to be gone. Sorry, what about the other question about the private, right? How do you delete a private? So you come here. Let me just go back to my teams. You come to the channel, click on the ellipsis, delete this channel. Remember, you only be able to delete this channel if you are the owner of this team, okay? So when I go here, I'm sorry, can someone mute themselves? All right. Okay. So as I was saying, you can delete because I am the owner. If I am just a member, I won't be able to delete the private or any other channel. I have to be made member of the main team. If I want to delete the test, I need to belong to the retail as an owner. If I'm just a member, I won't be able. All right, more questions?
Great, thank you. And just to return to another one from a bit earlier, we had a question from Juliana. If I'm participating in a meeting, how can I send an invitation to another person to join if they were not originally invited?
So if you want to share, you just go on your calendar on Outlook, like this, for example, and you have here, you have the forward, and just invite someone. Just remember, when the person is going to receive this forward, the original, which is me, for example, if Ellen was forwarding this, I'm going to get an invitation saying, Ellen has forwarded your invitation to that same person. So that is a security measure because I want to know who has been invited to the meeting I created. So bottom line is you can forward this invitation to anyone. And when you forward it and the other person receives my meeting, wasn't originally invited by me, like the ones you have yesterday, for example, the one we're having right now, I'm going to receive saying, Ellen has forwarded your meeting to John, for example. So I always have visibility, but the way is forward the meeting, and that's going to be it.
Great, thank you. And a question we've had in the chat here from Silva. We have a question. When a new group is created in Teams, I get a warning in Outlook. But if you put @name, I get a notice in Activities, but not Outlook. So is there a way to show that in Outlook as well?
Well, it depends on the settings you have from your administrator. And also when you go here on the settings, okay, you can define the notifications you receive. Okay, so you can have banner and email, banner or only show on the feed. So what I recommend to Silva is that if you have Teams, go to the settings. So you click on a picture of your name, settings, and you can go to the notifications, and here you can decide what type of notifications you want to get. A banner. The banner is the little banner that appears here at the bottom. Or if you want to get an email, or for example, I have off for most of my things because I don't like notifications. So that's how you define it. If you don't see them available, it's because your administrator has restricted them. But if not, by default, they're going to be available there.
Great. And another question on meetings. How can we send a reminder of a scheduled meeting?
So when you schedule the meeting, that's going to be the settings you define on the calendar, right? So either you create the meeting here, and as you can see here, you have a few options, but not the same as in Outlook. So what you're going to do is, in terms of Outlook, when you have Outlook open, see this reminder here. I have a reminder that I defined when someone created a meeting. They defined it's going to be 30 minutes snoozing or a reminder, or 15, or an hour. So it's totally depending on how you create it. So that's not depending on Teams. It's depending on Outlook. Remember, the calendar doesn't belong to Teams. The calendar belongs to Outlook. So everything you configure is going to be Outlook. Everything you see here has been created via Outlook, or you can create Teams. I personally use Outlook, but everything you have here, it's Outlook manageable, not Teams. You can see it in Teams. Remember, Teams is the front door for your house. Okay, I have time for another question.
I wonder, actually, Claudia, in the last couple of minutes, could you maybe share some places where people can go for help? So I know we talked about
Yes.
when we were setting this meeting up, how people can get support. So maybe if we could point people to where they can go if they need help.
Okay. So the best way, and one of the ones I prefer, is going to be the tech community. So I'm going to go share this in the chat conversation here with everyone. So I believe everyone can read this. So the tech community is official information that we have from Microsoft, where we have all the features, everything that is coming, tricks, tips and tricks, everything, all the articles. This is official and is written by our product group. Then you also have a non-ending number of features. So you have, for example, this that I like very much, where you have everything for Office 365 resources. Then I'm going to also put it in here in the chat. And of course, we can share this by email. And you have, in terms of, so like, for example, if I click here, it's going to bring you exactly what I was before, but you're going to have everything for all the topics, not only just Teams. So this is the basic. So also we have through TechSoup. I don't know if you're familiar with TechSoup. I don't have the link right now in front of me, but you can go to TechSoup. We have made available several webinars to TechSoup, and also to LinkedIn, and also to TSI, Tech for Social Impact. I'll make sure I'll share this with Ellen after the meeting. And that's a number of webinars that you can attend, and to know more about Teams and about remote work and everything else that makes sense during the specific period of time for COVID. Ellen, I'll make sure I'll share all the links with you. Feel free to distribute. I know we're out of time. And if there are any other questions after the session today, please let Ellen know, or myself, so I think she can share my contacts. Also, the recording, I'll make it available to you, Ellen, and then feel free to distribute to everyone in the meeting.
We'll make sure to share that. We'll share all these useful links as well as the recording soon. Thank you so much, Claudia. I think that was a really useful overview with some really helpful tips on how to use Teams. And thank you everyone who's joined us this week. And thank you for joining us today and for the bootcamp. If you're participating in the email bootcamp, you can keep an eye out in your inbox next week for week 2, where we'll be covering how to host effective remote meetings and events, building on this really useful information that we've learned about the technical side today. So thank you all for joining, and hope to see you again next week.
Thank you, everyone. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Great.
And thanks
Thank
for the
you.
great questions. Thank you. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.